I am Jim Collison, and this is the Wellbeing at Work with CliftonStrengths podcast recorded on February 9th, 2022. In this CliftonStrengths podcast, we'll look at the strengths, insight, and action planning items from Appendix 1 in the Gallup book, Wellbeing at Work. One theme at a time, and today's theme is futuristic. If you're listening live, love you have you join us in our chat room. There's a link right above me there. Sign in and you can ask your questions. Or if you're listening after the fact, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Dr. Jacqueline Robinson is our host today. She works as a Gallup Learning and Development Consultant and was the primary contributor to Appendix 1 in the Wellbeing at Work book. Jacqueline, always great to be back with you, and welcome back.
Likewise, thank you. Excited to talk about futuristic with our futurists.
That's what we're talking about. Why don't we start with the standard definition?
All right. So, those that lead with futuristic are inspired by the future and what could be. They energize others with their visions of the future.
Inspired by the future. I love that. I love that start with that because gives it a very positive start. As we think about that definition, how does it relate to you or me, and how does it relate to others?
If this is you, as someone that is more visual by nature, you have a talent for envisioning the future state of situations, events, products, and more. When you take those visions of a brighter or bolder world and put them into action, you can bring new innovations and ways of thinking to life. How it relates to others, the creativity and or idealism that runs through your mind is a value add to individuals and teams seeking to break out of stagnant ways of thinking or doing. You can help push through status quo and invite in innovation.
I like that. I like that a
Yes.
lot. That you know what?
Feeding my own futuristic with these ways of describing it.
You know what word I thought of is hope, right?
Yes. Good
Bringing
one.
hope. And I just think futuristic, like all of them can have some element of that. But I think futuristic has that bend towards hope. And
Yes.
super, super important. We've been spending the season really kind of talking a lot about these themes and well-being and what they look like when they're thriving and what they look like when they're struggling. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes. So thriving is when they can work and play in environments that embrace innovative thinking or new ideas. From a social standpoint, connecting with other futurists, so to speak, to learn about new advancements in a field or a hobby of interest can bring forth engagement and a lot of energy for this person. And then struggling is when this individual is stuck in an environment where status quo is embraced or where it requires a lot of time for changes to occur. It could be because of company policy or red tape or just the different hands that it has to cross to get implemented. But that excitement could quickly lead to fizzle or frustration. It's like it's not moving fast enough. We're not making those changes fast enough.
Yeah. In times of high change,
Hmm.
do you also think that can be when things are happening out of the control of someone with high futuristic and they can see, or they can't see
Mm,
because things are do you think that can lead to some struggling in well-being areas?
I could see that. Maybe the vision. We've talked about this before too, just in kind of circles in and outside
Mhm,
of
mhm,
Gallup. But if the futurist's vision is different than the vision of the company or
mhm,
organization, there can be
mhm,
some struggle, or the person that's in front of them, there can be a struggle.
mhm.
Um, so then it might be the case of helping that individual see, touch, and taste the vision that is being implemented and why it's going to be innovative or why that path is being taken could be helpful for
Yeah,
that individual.
yeah.
It's a good call out though, really good call out.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Mhm.
and may require some, like a lot of conversation. That's one of these
Mhm.
things where, right, we need to overcome that by voicing that. Hey,
Yes.
I was kind of thinking this was my future, and you're telling me today it's not,
Yes.
right? Right?
Let's
And
dial
so
it back and have that conversation.
yeah, well, and but that's a moment I think is, and we
Yes.
think we've got these best practices, right? We think about in Appendix 1, which you did most of the work on. There, we've got these themes and then the 5 elements. As we think about some best
Mhm.
practices, how can we overcome that? Why don't you walk us through one of those, Jacqueline?
Yeah. So, from a career well being perspective, this person thrives when they're living in the future.
Mm,
So, asking them to connect the task at hand to where it all leads can be helpful. They can really energize the team and customers by sharing their vision of the future. Um, so, again, just what's the future that you see, and if you're a manager, bring that futuristic person to the conversation, to the table, because if they've
mm.
really matured that talent theme, then they can help people see, touch, and taste what that future looks like. That's going to bring a lot of inspiration, into your point, hope.
Yeah, and that hope can spread across all 5 of those, plus all the other ones that people wanna talk about. Like, I
Mhm.
just think there's some great power in this to really not just for the me, but for the we, right? To
Mhm.
those around me, family, teams, where I work, whatever, organizations I'm a part of. I think there's, and maybe even today as we think about, para organizations or volunteer or some of those kinds of
Mhm.
things where people don't have to be there, right? And they've been, I mean, it's been difficult times. Things have all changed on them. And I think someone with high futuristic can look ahead and say, hey, look, I know this is the way it is today, but I'm seeing some things ahead where there's some hope. And
For
maybe
sure.
hold some of those organizations that aren't glued by natural things, but just by people volunteering. And we're going to need those. You know, we're going to need some of
For
those things in the
sure.
future here, right? Anything else you want to add?
I think you're really touching on how they build relationships, or can be the glue for people,
Yeah.
even though it's a strategic thinking theme. So,
Yeah.
a lot of people might struggle with this sometimes, to say, how do I build relationships with futuristic? And it's through that sense of inspiration and hope that we often see it. And um, helping people remember that a brighter future can come, or a brighter future lies ahead. And hey, this is what I see.
4 other helps in there for the other ones we didn't talk about in this in the appendix, and you can go back there and take a look. Use those as a resource. So, Jacqueline, with those, with thinking with futuristic in mind, and this is
Mhm.
really what it's all about. We've alluded to a few things, but how can we use it to help others?
Yep. If you're a manager or leading a team, your natural inclination to think about the future can help employees see how what they're doing today is leading to a better tomorrow for
Mm,
customers. In addition, you can help them think about their future in the organization and help craft a plan to get them there. If you're on a team, your dreams of the future or ideas for new products and innovations can bring forth inspiration and enthusiasm on the team when you take those ideas and help others see it and realize it. And you can do this by translating those visions in your mind into words or visuals for the team to also see and visualize. As an individual, I shifted this a little bit. I thought,
mm,
continue to hone your talent for the future. You can take those pictures in your mind and make them purposeful intentions by way of vision boards, a picture of where you see yourself in the future, words of affirmation, or even a social group or podcast related to the future state of
mm,
things. So
mhm.
continue to feed that futuristic. And when you have those ideas, depending on other themes that surround it, sometimes you just need to ground it. Vision boarding, thinking of yourself in that future state, social groups, that can help you really
Mm.
lean into it with intention.
I'm going to add one to this list. We haven't done
Yes.
this way, but as a coach, I think there's an opportunity with those with high futuristic
Mhm.
to ask great questions that lead individuals to thinking about how things could be better in the future,
Yes.
right? Of crafting those questions in a way that leads them there. You know how to get there. You do it for yourself all the time. You know how to get yourself there. Think
Mhm.
the key is crafting those questions in a way and leading an individual there to be able to help them see I'm a firefighter, not a farmer. I live in the day to day. It's great when someone can walk me down. Hey, let's look a little bit ahead on this. And I think that's kind of
Mhm.
a coach's job, right? It can be to lead them ahead. So challenge you coaches, especially those of you with high futuristic. If you don't have it, borrow it somehow. Put it on the credit card. But I think it's a great
Yes.
opportunity, right, to do that. And then in Appendix 2, we have this framework to work through. Coaches, let me encourage you to use that framework as you're coaching individuals. Jacqueline, give us an example of what this would look like maybe for futuristic.
Yes, I'm glad you brought up community earlier as well, because I selected from the community well-being piece in Appendix 2. So ask yourself, how can my community get better? What can I
Mm,
help change? Ask your team members, how does the work we do have an impact on our communities? And take action. Volunteer for a community event you feel passionate about as a team. So, ways that you can lean into futuristic. And I think it would all even start from asking yourself, how can my community get better? What can I help change? Or asking the team, what do we want to get involved in and how can we help change that? And then shaping it actually on the ground and seeing those ideas you have come to fruition.
I love where we've gone with this from a hope. Didn't intend. Like, I'm learning along with you. This is the great part about doing this, is that
Yes.
oftentimes, I have these moments. I had never really thought of futuristic in terms of hope. And so it gives me a little bit of hope as kind of, I think through this today as we spend time in the future. The great thing is this podcast is an exercise in futuristic, because it's going
Hmm.
to be listened to not just today, but tomorrow and the next day and far into the future. And there's
Hmm.
great hope. I think there's great hope in that. So, Jacqueline, anything
Hey,
else you'd add
cheers.
before I'd wrap it up?
No, keep dreaming,
Yeah.
futurists.
Help us. Help us. We're gonna need your help. Like, I think those that have high futuristic, we're gonna need your help as we move forward. So, well, with that, we'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we do have available now in Gallup Access. Head out to gallup.com/CliftonStrengths for coaching, master coaching, or if you want to become a Gallup certified strengths coach, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. We'll get you set up, or at least some information on that as well. Join us on any social platform by searching Clifton Strengths. And by the way, you should be subscribed to the Clifton Strengths podcast by now. If you're not, all the cool kids are. So you want to head out. This is so difficult to remember. Just search Clifton Strengths podcast. That's all you need to remember. Clifton Strengths podcast. Get it, subscribe to it on your podcast app. Subscribe to us everywhere, just so you never miss an episode. Want to thank you for joining us. If you're listening live, we'll do some post shows, so stay around for that. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.